Hello, it's another edition of Channels Beam on Channels Television. Welcome to the program. Amayawa Ogundele. In recent times, cases of suicide involving young people have been in the news. Young ladies and men have at different times taken the option of ending their own lives after going through some life challenges. Some people have pinned down depression, a mental health condition, as one of the possible triggers. Today on the program, we examine various factors that may be fueling this worrisome situation, particularly among the youths, and how to tackle it. But just before we get into the heart of that matter, let's check out trends in the past week.
Zamfara had significant mentions on social media for
Various factors that may be fueling this worrisome situation, particularly among the youths, and how to tackle it. But just before we get into the heart of that matter, let's check out trends in the past week.
Zamfara had significant mentions on social media following news that the Supreme Court voided all votes for the All Progressives Congress in the general elections. The Apex Court had dismissed an appeal filed by the governor-elect, Mukhtar Shehu, challenging the nullification of the APC primaries in the state, and then ordered that the runner-up candidate be sworn in as governor. British Prime Minister Theresa May tendering a tearful resignation to
Those are the trends in the past week. Now let's take a look at issues surrounding the seeming increase in suicide cases involving young people in Nigeria. Joining me in the studio to discuss the topic for the day is a youth mental health advocate, Awa Ojefo, and a medical doctor, Yewande Dikpel. Many thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Also on Skype, we have Chude Jidowo, who is the founder of Joy Incorporated. Thank you so much, Chude, for joining us. All right, ladies, let's start. This topic, it breaks my heart, really, because it seems like in the past few weeks, we've had at least one case reported on social media. It's really alarming. But Dr. Dikpel, I'll start with you. What is the situation right now? Do we even have data to sort of track events?
Currently, we don't have any, because Nigeria is not a country that does research. We do not do our own research. We rely on WHO. So there's really no data surrounding the amount of suicides we're having now. Because initially it wasn't like there weren't suicides, but now because social media helps to report it faster. But then again, recently we're having something called a suicide contagion, which is people hearing about other people's suicides and then committing suicide. Usually, because of the way suicide is reported by the media, it creates what is called the copycat effect, and then you have the suicide contagion. Because when people report, you mention the name, you mention the mode of the suicide, you mention details of suicide notes, you mention things that shouldn't be known. You don't talk about helplines and what to do, or signs of someone that is going suicidal. And also, once people hear that, especially people who are going through a lot, and they hear, oh, this person committed suicide, this was what he used, this was how he did it. Oh, I didn't have the courage to do it before, but now since I have this information, I can do it. So that's how the contagion works. I think the media has the bulk of the work in helping to curtail the contagion.
Now, Hawa, what are the reasons young people especially, have right now for all these suicide cases? What exactly is going on?
So a couple of things are going on, or maybe even more. But there's a strong link between suicide and mental disorders, obviously. And we have been a country that haven't fully grasped and, come to terms with our state of mental health as a nation. So it is not that we are immune to the global statistics that show that, suicide is the second leading cause of death. in young people aged 15 to 29. So it's not that, you know, we're not part of the statistics that over 800,000 people are dying globally every year from suicide. So it's just about, at least on the one hand, dealing with mental health issues and being able to address the fact that a lot of young people are dealing with so much, whether it's school pressures, whether it's peer pressure, whether it's cyberbullying, whether it's, you know, very abusive parenting or substance abuse as an outlet to something else they're dealing with. We need to begin to address the fact that young people are going through mental health issues as well, depression, anxiety, body image issues, you know, and all of those social vulnerabilities that are very inherent in our society. So they're going through all of these things, and then we are just on the other end looking at the mode of the suicide and all of that, which is all very valid. But are we really drilling down to what is really happening in the society? How are all the other, you know, macroeconomic factors, for example, affecting young people? How are the states of schooling and poverty and unemployment and all of those social issues affecting young people as well? Then we can now begin to, step by step, begin to lay up where the problems are coming from.
Now, some would argue or would just say, perhaps out of ignorance, that these things are more Western, you know, they're not African, they're not Nigerian. They'll say, oh, many years ago, we didn't hear about young people committing suicide. How do you respond to such talk?
So we definitely have barriers to seeking help, and what you've just mentioned is a huge barrier, stigma and taboo, the idea that this is not our thing. So you guys just watch a lot of TV and you've imported so many things from the internet and then you've said it's our problem. So now we're saying that it seems to be a problem. And just because you haven't heard that people have been dying by suicide does not mean it hasn't been happening. You know, so I always tell people that just because the lights has been off and this table has been here, and then all of a sudden you put on the lights, oh, the table just got here. I'm like, no, 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 it's been there. But it's just that all of the factors like tech and social media have sort of like exploded even the, you know, the littlest things within society. They've magnified it in such a way that everybody has to hear it and everybody hears it very instantly. So no, it's not a Western thing. It's a very human thing to go through any mental health challenge. I mean, just the same way you have your physical health, you have your mental health as well. And that's too, in that area, you can't fall sick.
Now let's bring in Chude into this conversation. Chude, you brought in Joy Incorporated. What prompted this move?
Well, it's really to look at mental health from a prevention and positive psychology point of view, which is that it's important. There's a mental health crisis across the world, as the other speakers have mentioned, and part of the solutions to this problem is treatment, is curative. But then, on a larger scale, there's the idea that if people lived happier lives, if people paid attention to all the segments of consciousness that help with flourishing life, they are able to build resilience to avoid or prevent having to deal with mental or emotional health challenges. Now, it doesn't mean that they will not, because some of these things are out of our control according to the research, but are the things, the tools, the systems, the practical capacities that they have to build their own positivity, to increase their positive ratios, to build their own resilience. They begin to implement those things and begin to build their immunity, so to speak, against the kinds of mental and emotional health challenges that they can deal with. The company actually came from my own personal experiences with depression. I've spoken and written about this extensively. In 2016, I went through 3 months of a major depressive episode. It made me begin to question the things that we had been taught in this culture and in this context about mental health. And I began to think about how do you ensure that a lot of the research that's already available across the world, unfortunately, not a lot of it in Africa beyond, say, Zimbabwe or South Africa, but how do you bring that research and inject it into the popular conversation so that people begin to take their emotional and mental health seriously? That's how Joy Inc. came about.
Dr. Dikpelu, where should we be going from here with the proliferation of technology, smartphones, social media? You know, some would say it's a template, so it depends on what you use it for. Some would say that we're more connected and at the same time not connected, because you just have people always on their phones and not interacting physically? How important is physical day-to-day interaction?
Well, physical interaction is really important. It's always been important. Every human is a social animal and would always need to interact. But since technology has sort of made it easier to interact with not just people in your locality, people everywhere, there's an increase in people keeping suicide notes online, people having being exposed to cyberbullying. Even though technology is like a two-way street, one side being good, one side bad, I think the government and people interested in increasing the conversation around mental health, mental illnesses, what to do when you have issues, they can explore this. They can use technology as a tool in disseminating information, sharing the information, creating support groups, creating platforms where people can come to share their stories, share their issues, and then even helplines and social media spotters. So you have She Writes Woman, Mentally Aware, and some other organizations who started most of their work media-based through informations, tweet chats, microblogging on Instagram, opening of blogs, and then having online support groups and all that. And all the research done on all the social media platforms shows that, oh, this is mental health is really, really an issue that we need to focus more on. And because of that, you're able to do more things offline. You're able to do more offline campaigns. But social media has to be used like, it has to be targeted in its use.
So what are the signs? And when I ask what are the signs, I'm asking in two parts. What are the signs physically when I see someone? And what are the signs when I follow someone online? Because sometimes I may not always have that one-on-one interaction with someone offline. But how do we know what are the signs to look out for offline and online?
Signs of, is it suicide? Or
of someone who is being
mental
suicidal,
illness?
someone who needs urgent attention, someone probably suffering from depression, loneliness. These are the issues.
Okay, so signs that someone is going through a lot. It might not be a classified mental illness. It might just be someone going through a hard time, because not all people who commit suicide have a mental illness. Sometimes it may just be a sudden environmental factor, maybe war or sudden loss or divorce or something. But yes, having a mental illness increases the chances that someone will commit suicide. So some things to look out for. When you have someone who is always talking about death, the person was okay before, but then recently the person talks about death, starts to give away their possessions, starts to say, oh, I will this to this, my friend. If you hear I'm dead, don't cry for me. If you see this message, don't cry for me, you know. They start to talk about not caring about anything. They've lost all worry. They have nothing to live for anymore. You know that this person, you need to watch out. Physically, there are really, really no signs. If someone doesn't show you, Nigeria, we're not a culture of people wearing their emotions on their face. I can be smiling 24/7, but I'm dying inside. That's something we have so embodied the suffering and smiling culture.
Let me
that
quickly
you can
bring...
never ever see a sign that someone is going through a lot.
I see how we're nodding. What has been your experience in all of this?
So it's a very interesting, and I love the point that she made. You know, we have, you know, perfected the art of suffering and smiling. You know, the fact that you cannot spot it. So it requires a lot more, and we have to lean into genuinely caring and connecting with people, and being. I mean, social media gives you a lot of followership and a lot of buzz and everything, but true connection and true belonging really happens offline, and it's when people lean into other people's situations. If I look at my personal experience, I mean, after I got diagnosed and I looked back on my life, I realized that I had been dealing with my mental health issues for at least 8 years of my life, and nobody in my family knew. No, my friends didn't know that. So it's usually very important that we begin to have conversations about things like this, that we go beyond how are you, I'm fine. You know, so because a lot of us are so consumed with our own worries that we don't, once somebody else says, okay, let's just move on. You know, it's important that we begin to lean into other people's issues and connect genuinely.
All right, let's take a quick break. The conversation continues after this short break. Do stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. We still have our panelists with us in the studio, Hawa Jefo and Dr. Wande. Thank you very much for waiting with us.
Thank you.
And on Skype, we have Chude Jidonwo back with us. Many thanks, Chude.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, very quickly, what should government be doing at this time?
Well, to be fair, I think that the one thing that government needs to do is to establish baselines. and to have actual data for the extent of I mean, we don't have any data that we're working with. The last possible nationwide data that we have, I suspect, is the one that was done by Professor Koreji at UI, and that's about almost 2 decades ago. So fast, it's why it's difficult for me to get really excited when people talk about suicide, because I'm not aware there's a distortion effect. If social media is distorting a reality that already existed, or if it's getting worse, we don't know. We don't know if it's a media narrative or if it's an actual of suicides. We don't know. So the most urgent task that I think we all have as a society led by government is to establish what the data actually is.
All right, Chidi, we're having difficulties with your audio. Please just hang in there. Dr. Wande, earlier on we were talking about signs. Would you like to speak a little more about that?
Okay,
what we should look out for?
Usually, there are plenty signs, and some of them we call them major signs and minor signs. For depression, for example, someone is always having low energy, always complaining of being tired, even after going home, sleeping and all that, And then there's also low self-esteem. There's the anhedonia, that's loss of interest in things that previously give pleasure. So for someone who likes to hang out with his friends, all of a sudden he's starting to withdraw. But one of the key things people tend to notice is social withdrawal. This person is no longer around his circle of influence, is no longer around the people who seem to used to make him happy and all that. Major signs
to look out for. How about what should be done when we see these signs, or when someone is experiencing any of these symptoms?
Okay, so that's a 2-part question. So if you see someone who you feel like, I can see some red flags here, I think it's important to strike conversation. Now, how we strike conversation is usually where the problem is. That's where we lose people, and then you say the wrong things and they shut down, and that's it for them. They're never going to open up to you. So this is a very delicate place to be. If the person is someone close to you, better. If it's not someone close to you, now you have to exercise some extra caution, because that could be you're intruding, and what if the signs are wrong, or what if they're not, people want to feel protected, and people don't want to feel like, oh, there's something wrong. Are you trying to say there's something wrong with me? That kind of thing. So you want to be very careful. You want to be sensitive about how you strike the conversation in a private, confidential manner, in a way that is trusting. So if you're not very close, maybe try to be very close first before you then bring up those kinds of conversations. One of the major things that people with mental health issues are struggling with is the idea that it's not valid. And that's a problem. So when you finally are with somebody, you are gaining their trust, they get validated. Your feelings are valid. What you're going through is valid. It's okay to deal with it, okay? What do you want me to do for you? Because help is different for different people sometimes. For one person, help is, please clean my room, because I hate the fact that I can't get up and do everyday activities, and I need somebody to just help me out in being able to do. For other people, it's, I don't know if you can find a way to get me from one place to the other, because I just don't, I feel like if I go out alone, like she said, something might happen or something. So be with me, and it's more than that. Just support people. Just be there for them. If they feel like they need space, give them a bit of space, but don't be out of sight. Just follow them on the journey. Yeah.
Let's bring in Chude. Chude, what are the channels available? There's registered channels. Do we have helplines, and what are they? Can you share with us? All right, I think we don't have Chude after all. Thank you so much, Chude Jidonwo, who is the founder of Joy Incorporated. He joined us via Skype. How back to you? Where do we go from there? What are the channels available? What are the helplines? Are there any helplines?
There are, but just to pick up from what Trudy said, just to add, buttress that, it would be so fantastic if we had a government that actually cared about these issues. But beyond just caring, being able to provide, like you said, baseline, whether it's research, that's fantastic. So we really know what's happening and we can connect the dots. But beyond that, also being able to provide basic mental health care. So mental health and primary health care is the least we can ask for, because the average Nigerian, that we know is living on less than $2, or the fact that we're the poverty capital of the world. And, all of those statistics are telling us that, look, we may provide all of these other things as auxiliary organizations trying to, put in our own bit into the environment, but systemic issues or systemic challenges like not having primary health care, mental health and primary health care centers is a problem, because the average Nigerian that's where they go to, and that's where they need to access help. So if the government can just do that, that would be fantastic. But of course, you have Mentally Aware Nigeria Initiative, you have She Rights Women, and we have our own helpline as well. You have Joy Help as well, that has a helpline that people can reach as well.
Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us on Channels with Dr. Yewande Dipelu, who is a medical practitioner, as well as our Jafo, who is a youth mental health advocate. Just before we go, let's take a look at those most viewed videos on our channel in the past week.
At number 5 is the video showing proceedings at the Presidential Election Tribunal, where one of the new political parties, Hope Democratic Party, announced that it had filed 3 applications, one of which is seeking the order of court to restrain President Muhammadu Buhari from being sworn in for a second term on May 29, 2019, because it will be unfair to inaugurate President Buhari on the grounds that the validity of the election that produced him is being challenged at the tribunal.
We need security. And you cannot secure this country. Today, banditry has taken over the whole country. You cannot secure the country on the basis of present architecture. You have to restructure Nigeria.
Next is the debate between the spokesperson of the social cultural organization, Afenifere, Yinka Odumaki, and a former lawmaker and APC chieftain, Cletus Obun, on what President Buhari's second term should focus on.
You cannot say that this government has not done well. It may not have done well from the position you are standing, not because it is not doing anything, but it is doing what you do not want.
It doesn't matter at whatever time somebody is determined that is the winner of an election and he takes the oath of office, that is when his time starts counting. And if that is the case, then it is not right and it is not proper for you to go ahead and start challenging these kind of things in court.
At number 3 is the video showing the discussion by a lawyer and APC member, Daniel Bola, and PDP's presidential spokesperson, Kasima Fegwa, on the move by Hope Democratic Party to stop the May 29th inauguration of President Buhari.
Even though we have issues with the outcome of the elections, we are not going to allow a vacuum. We are not we are law-abiding political party. We are law-abiding Nigerians. We will ensure that we pursue this tribunal case to a logical conclusion and ensure and through the process advance very cogent reasons with evidence at the tribunal to convince the justices that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar actually won the election of 2019.
And what we surprise is we are expecting as the president come meet Emepele.
Next is Honorable Mohammed Kazare's condemnation of President Buhari's decision to reappoint the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele.
We are expecting next level to wipe this type of people aside, to bring a fresh people who's good idea so that they can bring their contribution and give their contribution to the economic of this country.
The Judex is expected to be impartial. And I think that foundationally, Section 36 of the Constitution speaks to this. It provides that in the determination of his civil rights and obligation, a person is going through the adjudicatory process shall be entitled to a fair hearing.
The most viewed video for the week is that which has a legal practitioner, G.T. Ogunye, and PDP's presidential campaign spokesperson, Segun Showumi, analyzing issues concerning the Presidential Election Tribunal.
How do you explain that in a two-party situation of APC versus PDP, someone whose family members, most of them, are elected members, husband, candidate, son, brother, peers to the president, all of it all exactly in the tent and in the camp of potentially allies of one of the people who will have some advantage from how the case goes in a matter that is as charged as this.
And those are the most viewed videos on our channel in the past week. Do remember, the conversation continues on our social media handles showing on your screen. That's it on this week's edition of Channels Beam. Thank you for watching. I'm Mayawa Ogundele.